we've talked a lot about this in between media this season. There's going to be curveballs coming your way.
Hate's a strong word. I dislike Kirk Cousins more than probably any other quarterback.
Because I get a little bit of that rookie-itis,
I would have said, I would love to look what you're
Even though I strayed, I'm still stuck between an interpretation, what it all means. Can I make a difference for something different? My mind in prison, then I saw the vision. Played the field, it's no competition. Found success through the repetition. If it's impossible, stick to the mission. I'm just cruising through on my way to get it. I found myself somewhere in between. Yeah, I found myself somewhere in between. Found myself somewhere in between. Yeah, I found myself somewhere in between. The In Between Fantasy Football Podcast.
So one thing that really sets us apart here is we're not afraid to talk about other things that maybe aren't super fantasy related.
Do what you can to become a better person, to become a better human.
All right. Welcome in, everyone. It is Tuesday, January 18th, making our way through the NFL postseason, the in-between fantasy football family. Back with you. I'm Seth Woolcock, joined by one of my normal hosts, Scott Rainier, holding it down out in Seattle, as always. And we got our analyst, our ranker, our columnist, Dave Fantasy, joining us today as well. Guys, we got a super special show for you, all wrapped up. It's been a great weekend of football, hopefully a great weekend of life for everyone as well. We're going to do our rankings debrief later on in the show. We're going to tell you where we were right, where we were wrong, a lot of lessons learned from this year. Happy to have Dave on for that. We're also going to break down the fantasy winners and losers from this past weekend because, believe it or not, we talked about it just last week. There are winners and losers of every playoff game as well. You might not be playing. There might not be leagues going on, or you might have some leagues going on. But either way, guys, we're going to break it all down. Scott, Dave, how are you guys? Did you have a successful first playoff weekend?
Go ahead, Dave.
Overall, yeah, I think that it was a pretty good weekend. The games, we'll talk about that. The games left a little bit to be desired, but
yeah.
But all in all, yeah, it was a great weekend. There were a lot of fantasy performances that I enjoyed seeing. Really already fun to go through Twitter and see the panic meter.
Oh yeah.
Or the hype meter moving on these guys.
Let's go, baby.
Obviously, we're gonna get into that, but it's a lot of fun to see all everybody's reactions, just reading all the tweets and stuff. Reacting to week one of the playoffs, about super wild card week.
Yeah,
I forgot. It was, even though I knew what the schedule was, I was still just like, wait, there's 3 games today and a game tomorrow.
Yeah,
on Sunday. I was just like, wow. But like Dave said, you could put quotes around some of the word games. But you know what? People have talked about it all season when there's been like a crappy slate on a Thursday night or a Sunday night.
Yeah.
It's like we were all screaming for games over the offseason. Like I'd watch any football. And then as soon as we get some, we complain at the first bad game. However, I was expecting a little bit more in the playoffs. I don't think the expanded 2 more teams experiment looks fantastic in its
quite
season.
Yeah. It's the first year though. Like it take the NCAA tournament though. How many years did they have to play that to get a 16 knocking off a 1 or a 15 knocking off?
No, it's true.
So I agree with you though. I talked about that earlier with Katie as well, but no, 100% agree with you guys. I will say though, I feel like already there's a lot of fantasy fever out there right now. Like people are starting to set their takes for next year. So we're going to discuss that today as well. What were your overall thoughts on this game, guys? Because I'm kind of cooped up inside right now. The East Coast got blasted with a snowstorm over the weekend. So I've been doing nothing but kind of watching back these games, looking at some of the in-depth analysis of it. It wasn't really a super wild card weekend to me. It was more like a kind of a sleeping wild card weekend, if you would.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Snooze-worthy, I think, was the term that you might have used earlier. Which was, I thought that was well put. In fact, I did sleep a little bit into the beginning of the Raiders and Bengals game. and missed some of the first quarter. So I missed some of I think
that was the one good game too. Yeah,
I know, and I missed arguably the best part of it apparently.
Yeah,
but I'm still confused by the Phantom Whistle thing. So let's.
Yeah.
I was. Oh, sorry, Dave. If you're still.
No, all I meant was there just wasn't a lot to watch. There were the Raiders game, Raiders Bengals, and the Cowboys Niners. Kind of technically came down to the last drive, but those games never really felt all that much in question.
Right?
Even the close ones.
Yeah, I wasn't. I'm not necessarily able to watch all of each game each weekend these days. Just with family and all that kind of stuff.
Hashtag dad life is what you're saying, Scott.
Sure. Not that I don't want
family.
Not that I don't want to
around, huh?
I'm judging myself here, I'm judging myself here, not anybody else.
Hashtag dad life, baby.
No, but the only game I really missed was the Eagles game. So, oh well. I will say though, once I saw the stat go up about the Bills going for that the record of never punting, never kicking a field goal. I saw that, I was like, oh my God. So, I mean, that was like witnessing history, even though it was a blowout and not a very good game. It was still something to root for.
Best cold weather performance I've ever seen.
That was ridiculous.
Josh Allen is a different cat. Guys, let's go ahead and run down through the slate for those of you who missed it. Saturday, the Bengals, they hold off the Raiders. For a minute, man, it looked like the Raiders were going to come back once again. 26-19 for the Bengals. The first playoff win for them in over 30 years. Congratulations to Joe Burrow, Zach Taylor, and that bunch. Well done this season already. Buffalo beat down on the Patriots. Cold weather performance. Wind chill below 0, 47-17. Easy money for Josh Allen and the Bulls. And then Sunday, Buccaneers beat down on the Eagles. Not a huge surprise, but 31-15. Jalen Hurts struggled a little bit in his first playoff appearance, as well as kind of the whole Eagles team didn't really show up on this one. Hats off to the Bucs, who got it done without Lenny Fournette over there as well. And then Cowboys Niners, man. Cowboys choked this one away at home. The whiteout did not work for the boys. And now we're back to the same narrative. Is Dak worth the money they paid him? Who knows? But hats off to Jimmy Garoppolo, Kyle Shanahan, and their gang. They got it done. And a controversial play to end it once again for the playoffs, or for the Cowboys in the playoffs, guys. And then cap it off. Steelers Chiefs Sunday night didn't really go the way we wanted, Dave, as Steelers fans. First quarter, man, there was some hope. TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, they got it done for us. But Big Ben, we'll talk about this later, but Deontay Johnson, man, he's back on the shit list for 2022 early. A couple of big drops from him. And then Monday night, I think the better team won, guys. Rams over Arizona, 34-11. Matthew Stafford, first playoff win for him.
Yeah, way to go, Stafford.
Yeah, no, that was great to see. It was still even that was another one where I knew that stat. I knew he had never won a playoff game, but I was still just like, really? It's never. Oh, that's right, because the team he played for. I mean, my favorite part, I think, was the Bengals getting the win. It just as somebody, my team wasn't in. Seahawks were eliminated a while back, so I really wanted to see that happen. I think I tweeted about it, like watching the pregame, watching what that stadium. It really reminded me of the feeling I had in 2005 as a Seahawks fan when they made the push to the Super Bowl. During the playoffs, it was just like this unknown feeling to me. I had never really experienced it. They made the playoffs once, like in the 90s or something, but it was just this energy I had never experienced. I could kind of sense that because there's quite a few fans in Cincinnati who were not alive.
Even on TV, you could just feel it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It was cool. It was really cool.
Yeah.
So good for them and good for their fan base.
Can we talk about Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase as well? Because I think right now, maybe aside from Stafford and Kupp, they have the best connection in the league on each other. I mean, it seems like he's throwing the ball before Jamar Chase is turning around, looking for it. The trust is unreal. They don't care if they throw an interception or two. I mean, it is unbelievable.
Yeah, and he's just got that. I love it. He's got that swagger, and he's got that attitude and confidence that he's built.
Yeah.
And I think it really stems a lot from, for one, the team they have, the end of the season they had. And, coming back from the injury like he did, to play like he did, tail end of this season, that's got to be such a confidence booster for a young quarterback. Like I saw an interview with him, and they were just talking about how it was the first playoff win in forever and all this stuff. He's like, that's great. We're really happy for that, for our fans. But this is how it's going to be now, everyone.
Mm-hmm.
This is us now. He's taking on that leadership role. I love it.
Yeah, me too. In fact, I wrote in my notes, this is just how I wrote it down. Joe Burrow is that dude.
Yeah.
He just is, he's exactly what they wanted him to be when they drafted him with the top overall pick. He's lifting that organization with his excellent play, especially down the stretch. He lifted one of my fantasy teams with some of his excellent play down the stretch too, as well.
Yeah.
So personal thank you to Joe Burrow.
Lit up some DFS lineups as well. Connor and I were on the spot Saturday morning hyping it up, and it came through. I mean, just the swagger of this kid, bro. It is different. He reminds me of someone around my age that I just want to be around, and I'd go out and play for. And I think his team wants to play for him. Zach Taylor's obviously done a very good job organizing this team. The defense is really solid. That D line is excellent. Hopefully they get a couple of the starters that went down to injury earlier on in this game. The other big takeaway for me, I know we don't talk a lot of IDP fantasy football on the show, but if you're playing IDP fantasy football out there, I mean, man, TJ Watt is a different cat. I think he's a top 10 player just in the league, not fantasy related, but just in the league. Dude is a difference maker.
Dude, the Watt brothers, the Bosa brothers, man, they knock heads. TJ Watt, he's so fun to watch. I love those defensive players that, you'll see a defensive back make a great player. You'll see a sack, but I like tracking the dudes that are just everywhere. On the Seahawks, it's Bobby Wagner. I'll just when they're on defense, I'll just focus in on Bobby Wagner. And I'll be like, wait, he didn't make the tackle, but how was he even involved in that play? He was way over here. I don't know a lot about defense. I don't know a lot about IDP. I did my first season of IDP this year, but he is TJ. He's a difference maker. He's a defensive player of the year, perennial candidate.
Yeah, we got our boy Steel Henderson in the chat. Top 3, baby. Top 3, Steel saying. I mean,
nice.
The Steelers aren't in the playoffs without TJ Watt. Hats off to him on a spectacular season. Dave, any final thoughts here as we close the chapter on Big Ben Roethlisberger? I don't want to get into it. There's a lot of different opinions on him on Twitter, but overall, what are your final thoughts here on this chapter, man? It's an era. It's the end of an era for us.
Well, yeah, I mean, Ben's walking away. He's a dude of, let's just say, questionable moral character, and then we don't have to really get into it. Yeah. But his accomplishments on the field for the Steelers organization are pretty much without argument. I mean, he's the most influential and most important passer in the club's history. Mm-hmm. And everybody's saying he's the first ballot Hall of Famer, and I tend to agree. And it is. It's the end of an era. It's exactly what you're saying. So whoever's the next quarterback to
just not
be for the Pittsburgh Steelers, he's got big shoes to fill.
Yeah.
And so that's just what I was gonna say. It's a tough spot to walk into. And there's a lot of possibility.
I think Ben really set the mold for what some of these quarterbacks, these big guys, the Joe Burrow, the Carson Wentz's, what they can become in their later years. Ben stuck around a lot longer than people thought, longer than Eli, longer than Philip Rivers in that same draft class, because he started getting the ball out early. I mean, it wasn't super effective because receivers can't catch the damn ball. Deontay Johnson. But overall, I think Ben really kind of defined what a quarterback like him can be in his later years. So hats off to him, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Guys, I do want to move forward here in the show to Headline Hijinks today, presented by our friends at Stevens Quality Barbering Services. IBT fam, listen, I've been telling you all season long, we've been telling you, if you want to look like this, maybe not like this in particularly, but if you want the haircut of a gentleman. If you want to walk in somewhere, own that room in the new year, head to Stevens Quality Barbering Services in Kerwinsville, PA. Guys, Noah's going to get you hooked up, whether you live in Western PA, Eastern PA. You're going to go there. You're going to have a phenomenal time at Stevens Quality Barbering Services. Quality haircut, a quality price, quality conversation, and just an overall quality experience. Get to Noah. Get to him. Stevens-quality.gembook.com. Book your appointment and get in there, slide in that chair, slide out looking like a gentleman. And guys, let's move on forward to headline hijinks. As always, we had some fantasy winners, fantasy losers from the week. The playoff variety, I think it's meaningful, though, because with the game on the line, the season on the line, players either performed and showed up or they didn't. Sometimes due to their own doing, or sometimes it's just the game plan. So, Scott, I want to start off with you, man. Who was your biggest winner from this past week? What is your headline to correspond?
My headline is Super Cam. And I'm not talking about Cam Newton. So, I mean, it's a little bit of low-hanging fruit for winners. Everybody was all over this, but Cam Akers coming back so quickly after a torn Achilles. So much hype and promise as when that injury occurred. And then the inevitable narrative that no running back can ever come back from one. A lot of broken hearts for Cam Akers fans out there. But he ends up coming back. I still was like, oh, he's not going to play. And then he played. He played in the last week of the season. I think he got like 5 carries, and then he played last night. He didn't set the world on fire. He had close to 100 total yards, a lot of that on one catch for 40. But he did not look necessarily worse for the wear. He looked good.
Oh, yeah.
And I just think, for one, he's a winner. For two, I think it's a winner just showing that for whatever reason, maybe the sample size was too small. Maybe modern medicine has made it, a quicker recovery, similar to an ACL tear. But, it's not the death nail it used to be, a torn Achilles, apparently. We'll see. This is just a couple games. We have some playoff games left, and then we have next season. But the reason I think he's a winner also, I mean, the value has gone a little bit on the overcorrected side. I saw a few polls today, Jonathan Taylor or Cam Akers in Dynasty, and it wasn't 100% Jonathan Taylor. That tells me it's gone a little too far.
Yeah.
But I think he's set up for crazy success in that system. I mean, the one thing the Rams has shown is running backs. I mean, similar to the 49ers, the running back who is leading the charge for the Rams produces fantasy points. And you might think, well, what about Sony Michel? What about Daryl Henderson? Well, here's my take on that. When Daryl Henderson was healthy to start the season, basically all the way up until week 12, after that he missed a few games. His running back rush share in that offense was 71%. Sony Michel wasn't quite acclimated at the start of the season, but Sony Michel was there for a lot of that, 71%. Then Henderson gets hurt. Michel comes in and takes over for the rest of the season.
Big end of the season.
90% running back rush share. McVay does not use a committee. He does not use a committee as much as people might think, just because he has multiple name value running backs in his system. So I think the best running back is going to lead this backfield next season, and I think that's Cam Akers. So I'm not worried about what they do with either of the other two running backs, to be honest.
Sony is a UFA, so I don't think he'll be back. They're not going to be. He just went out and got himself a bag somewhere. Someone's going to pay out for him. So he's probably gone.
And I don't hate on Daryl Henderson as much as some people do. I mean, I don't think he's going to necessarily take a bunch of valuable touches away from Cam Akers next season if Sony Michel's gone. But Henderson held his own for the first 12 weeks of the season. I mean, he was a very, very consistent RB2 over that time frame.
The injuries are the big issue, I think, with Henderson. As I was a Henderson truther for his first couple of seasons, I was hot on Henderson, and about halfway through 2020, I don't know. I just, you see a difference. You see a difference with a guy like Cam Akers than Daryl Henderson.
Oh yeah.
I think we'll continue to see that. Dave, what is your headline here for your winners of Super Wildcard Weekend?
My headline is Debo to the moon. I mean, Deebo Samuel taken off this weekend.
Yeah.
Not the first time he's done it, obviously. I mean, the value of this guy this entire season based on where he was going in drafts, the return.
One of the most valuable picks, yeah.
Absolutely incredible. He's given you value at the running back spot and at the wide receiver spot. Just being used in so many ways. One of the most versatile players in the NFL in a season where there were several of them, guys like Cordero Patterson, etc. But a lot of guys being used in multiple ways, in unique ways. But Deebo and his dynasty value has taken off, so it's too late to get this guy cheap. If you want him, you're going to have to pay in your dynasty leagues.
So I saw a trade over this offseason, and Deebo got moved during our rookie draft for, I think, like the 204 maybe, and it ended up going to Kadarius Toney. So like Kadarius Toney got moved for Deebo Samuel in the offseason. It's just like that's where his value was, though. Like that wasn't a bad trade at the time, but crazy to see that now. I even saw one of Cam Akers a couple weeks ago too. While we're on the topic, like Cam Akers went for it, like it was like a 3rd round pick or something, like a 3rd round pick, and maybe a running back that was used then, like Dante Foreman, who might not have a huge future, but it is absolutely crazy. But I agree with you here, Dave. Deebo Samuel has absolutely transformed the position here in 2021, and I think really teams are looking at him across the league and saying, how can we get someone to play that role?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep, it's what everyone always wanted Percy Harvin to be, but he could never be.
They're already talking about draft prospects in this draft that are the quote unquote next Deebo Samuel. I mean, have we ever seen a player this effectively do this, like play the running back and wide receiver position? Cordell Patterson's the closest person I can remember to it. I mean, Scott's comparison was pretty good too. I mean, the way that they wanted Percy Harvin to work out, the way that he was used, particularly during his time in Minnesota.
Yeah.
I don't think so, because the thing about Deebo Samuel is he can take over the game in either facet.
Yeah.
Like until he started getting a lot of carries, before that happened, he was getting targets after target after target. I mean, that's partially how he still accumulated 1,400 receiving yards, even though it seems like for like 5 games there, he was getting like 2 targets a game, getting all runs. He still had 1,400 receiving yards. So, I mean, he's one of those guys that it's just a home run waiting to happen every single play. Like the touchdown run he had in the playoff game. I mean, it was an excellently run play. Some really good blocking by the Niners line, but it's just he has that ability, and to have it out of the backfield, to have it out of the backfield, and to have, I mean, I posted it today. I still can't believe it. He led the league in yards per reception, led the NFL. And his average depth of target is 8.5 yards, which is
all yak. It's all yak.
So it's all yak, but it's still just like. So he basically, I think I wrote about this in Monday's column. He's basically a wide receiver premium scoring format of his own. It's 2 points banked every catch. You know what I mean? Like no matter what, because his yak is close to 10. He's unreal.
I think the other takeaway here too is for next season, outside of Elijah Mitchell and Deebo, there's not a running back that's going to hold value unless Elijah Mitchell or Deebo get hurt, because Deebo is the RB2. He is he takes that RB2 value that someone like in previous years, we've seen them running a committee, and now the committee is Elijah Mitchell or whoever the starter is and Deebo. So, you were not going to be like, I wouldn't recommend taking a shot on Jeff Wilson unless you're in a deeper league handcuffing next season. So just a thought. Niners running backs are always kind of a hot commodity here towards the start of the new year. Guys, my headline here is I'm throwing it out to one of my favorite movies, Wild Hogs, baby, starring Josh Allen instead of Tim Allen. Should have made a graphic for this, but Josh Allen, guys, have you guys seen this movie? Have you seen Wild Hogs at all?
I have not.
Well, I haven't.
Oh, what? Really?
I know. I actually, I'm I shouldn't even be saying this because my favorite comedians, the Sklar brothers, are in it, and so they'd be disappointed if they knew that I haven't even watched the movie.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have any kind of particular reason. I just haven't seen it.
Are you guys fans of Tim Allen at all?
Not really.
Okay, maybe that's like my generation. We're big Tim Allen folks.
I'm not a huge fan of Tim Allen. I was a big fan of Tool Time. Is that what it was called? The Home Improvement. Sorry, Tool Time. Yeah. That was his TV show within the TV show.
Home Improvement.
Yeah. I liked that show as a kid, but like I was never a huge fan of Tim Allen.
Okay,
it's just my own deal.
So Steele here on Facebook, he says, I'm definitely the guy in this movie that has the Apple logo tattoo. One of the guys just has like the Apple logo tattoo. He's like I think his name's Dudley. He's kind of like the nerdy guy in the group, but that's hilarious.
Oh man, if you lifted up your shirt right now and showed us an Apple logo tattoo,
I wish I would rep Apple. I'd rep
my day.
So guys, really my takeaway from this is Josh Allen is absolutely in the conversation for the best quarterback in the league from what we've seen this season. Once again, from what we saw, I mean, that one throw where he was going out of bounds was absolutely the dirtiest throw I've seen.
It's crazy.
Season. I couldn't believe it. Dawson Knox is a hell of a guy as well, but are you guys considering Josh Allen as QB1 next season for fantasy?
Yeah.
No, I mean, not considering. He's.
I mean, I'm gonna
for me right now. He was my quarterback one this year. So
yeah,
I mean,
he was our consensus. We're going to talk about it, but he was our consensus QB1 as well.
That's 2 straight seasons he's finished as the QB1. So I mean. Yeah. For fantasy purposes, I mean, I think at some point you have to start considering that person. Dynasty's a different story, but in redraft, I'm considering him. He has a higher rushing ceiling.
Yeah,
I guess floor, however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
But they pass. They're one of the most pass heavy teams in the entire league. So you can talk about sample sizes all day. Oh, it's only 2 years. It's like, yeah, now it's 2 years, 2 consecutive years of him being the number one overall QB. So, like, I mean, I don't necessarily think it's just a slam dunk. Yep, it's him over Mahomes, but it's definitely not a slam dunk in the other direction anymore.
Yeah, there's no gap. There's no gap anymore. I mean, with Josh Allen, he turned a franchise around. Like, the Chiefs were relevant before Patrick Mahomes. So I'm getting on. I mean, I'm late to that bandwagon, but I'm hanging on, man. I think he's going to be relevant for the next few years. We talked about it last week on the podcast. The Bills were my pick to go to the Super Bowl this season out of the AFC. He's got to step up this week against Patrick Mahomes. That is the AFC Championship to me right now here in the
that game's going to be beautiful. That game's going to be beautiful to watch. I've got high hopes.
I hope.
That's the thing. I didn't want to drag it on when everybody was talking about how much the game stunk this week, but that's wild card weekend every year. The wild card
just
game,
2 more.
Wild card game just doesn't deliver. I mean, it doesn't. They don't deliver like the divisional playoffs, which is what we've got coming up this week. And this is my absolute favorite playoff weekend of the NFL year.
Oh yeah,
divisional playoffs. You got, we still got 4 games. Mm-hmm. 4 teams in either conference, but we're cutting it down to the best of the best. We're going to see games that should be competitive, should be a good watch.
Oh, this one the fans get riled up too. Like, they're riled up for wild card weekend, but divisional round, championship round, those fans are rowdy, ready to go. These stadiums are going to be rocking. I'm excited. I'm excited to see it, man. No 2 better places, I think, in the AFC to host these games than Arrowhead and Music City as well. That's awesome to have a game back in Tennessee. So I'm really looking forward to these games. Before we totally foreshadow a little more on next week and recap this season, let's talk about some losers from this weekend. And I'll start here with my loser headline, and it's damn CeeDee Lamb. Man, I mean, not the season we were expecting from CeeDee Lamb, or at least a lot of us. We can talk about it a little bit here later on. I think I was the lowest of the 3 of us coming into the season on CeeDee Lamb. I remember having a conversation with Dave actually about CeeDee Lamb, And I know Scott, you were very profound too, but like, and for the right reasons. Like the arguments were there. But I mean, man, the disappointment for CeeDee Lamb continues here in the wild card weekend. 1 reception, 21 yards for this talented round 1 receiver prospect from just a year ago. Finishes a season on a very disappointing note after he was a wide receiver 48 over the last month, guys, of the season, finishing it off. He lost people championships. And then to continue it here in the playoffs, like, I asked it on Twitter a little bit earlier. No one really seemed to get on board, but is CeeDee Lamb, even without Michael Gallup, the 3rd receiving option in this passing game for Dallas next season behind Amari Cooper and Dalton Schultz? Because that's what it's looked like over the back half of the season and in wildcard weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna stand my ground with CeeDee Lamb a little bit. You can't argue, and I mean, again, it's hard to shift between redraft and dynasty. You can't argue with what happened, like, you know. But it was kind of it. It was partially, Dak Prescott wasn't producing the fantasy performance you were expecting out of Dak Prescott either.
100%.
And then in this last game, it's like the Cedric Wilson target show, and it's like, wait, what's going on here? So I don't really know what's happening. But I think just like talent-wise, I'm still betting on CeeDee Lamb. I'm still betting that, I mean, Schultz and Cooper are going to be right there. But after those two, there's no way I'm putting anybody else ahead of CeeDee Lamb.
Cedric Wilson has been way more productive over this time.
I'm still not putting him ahead of CeeDee Lamb.
I know you can't put him ahead of him, but like it's going to depend what these ADPs shake out to. But
True.
I honestly bet CeeDee Lamb still a 4th round pick next year. Like maybe mid to back half of the 4th round, but I don't know.
He's gonna be a really interesting player to watch the ADPs and redraft. Because there is still going to be people like me who are like, oh, no, this is the year.
I'll take Cedric Wilson. I'll take Cedric Wilson for an 8th or 9th round pick. I don't like it. This all presuming Michael Gallup moves on and Dalton Schultz is coming back, because Dalton Schultz is also a free agent as well. So he could go get a bag too. But I think Dallas is more inclined to pay him than anyone else here on the offense.
I think and this is not necessarily a fair comparison, but I don't want to be the person that gave up on Devante Adams because he had a rough couple-year start to his career.
Yeah,
I mean, CeeDee Lamb's got that kind of talent. That's all I'm saying.
I'll end it with this. I think if he's going to be successful, I think at the end of the day, he needs a better coach. Mike McCarthy is only going to get them so far. I think it's Kellen Moore. I think Kellen Moore is probably – they need to promote him to head coach. They need to promote Mike McCarthy to like some executive level. I don't want to see his life ruined or anything like that, because I think he is a talented person to have on your staff, but I don't think he's a head coach at this point. Dave, so you're with me as well. You think promote Kellen Moore here to head coach, because they don't want to lose both him and Dan Quinn. I've
been thinking, for a little while that Kellen Moore is the likely next coach of the Dallas Cowboys. And if if Dallas doesn't jump on it, he's going to go be the coach of somebody else. You see that tweet from the Broncos that Adam Schefter retweeted today that they're in Dallas looking on their head coaching search.
Yeah.
That's who they're talking to. They're interviewing Kellen Moore, and he's going to get a job somewhere. So I think if the Cowboys want to keep him and keep kind of this offense together, at least what they've got going, that's what they need to do. Or, if they're going to blow it all up, then who cares who the next coach is, I guess, I mean, you're going to start all over. But
they can't blow it up, though. Dak's under contract, Amari's under contract, Zeke's under contract.
Zeke's under a ridiculous contract.
Yeah, that's what's hurting them really at the end of the day, too. Not a lot of people are talking about that, but Zeke's been pretty awful this back half of the season. But let's move on from the Cowboys, though. We'll talk a lot about them over the offseason. Dave, what is your loser headline for us here, man?
My loser headline for you is, where have all the Steelers gone? It's supposed to be a play on what's that, Simon and Garfunkel? Where have all the flowers gone?
Okay.
Because they disappeared offensively from this game. I mean, if you Peter, Paul, and Mary. Oh, thank you, Kyle. Kyle has saved my guts there. Simon and Garfunkel. See, I get my old folk singers mixed up. But yeah, the Steelers were not there for fantasy purposes this weekend at all. That offense couldn't move the ball. You know, they got a couple of late touchdowns to wide receivers when Deontay caught one. I think James Washington caught the other. But for the majority of that game, they just could not move the ball. Najee Harris, after coming off, you know, his season's best game, was just not able to get it going. And Big Ben in his final game didn't give himself too much of a send-off. You know, I was not expecting the Steelers to beat the Chiefs at all by any stretch of the imagination, but I thought it was within the realm of possibility. But based on the way that offense looked, it was easy to see that game was going to be over, even though, like you pointed out, you know, we could be optimistic through the first quarter and then the TJ Watt touchdown, but with no offense, there was no winning against.
I think if Deontay Johnson catches a couple of those first down passes in the first quarter, it's a different game. Deontay Johnson really let the team down, and with Juju Smith-Schuster back, I expected to see more of him. That first reception Juju got in the first quarter, he stretches out, he gets that first down. I don't know. I don't want to get into it at this point, but I agree, man. I'm out on Deontay Johnson. I was out on him this season. I mean, for fantasy purposes, he might be okay moving forward. Chase Claypool took a step down this season as well. And then Najee Harris, man, burned a lot of people in a lot of playoff fantasy, a lot of DFS plays here last week. So I'm disappointed, man. I'm with you, Dave. The defense gave her hell, man, but they were so tired by the end of the first quarter. They were on the field so much. Scott, any final thoughts on the Steelers here?
All right, so
I want to move on. I'm so distraught thinking about it.
I get it. You guys are both Steelers fans. So I am not going to let Deontay Johnson's performance in this game affect me too much. I'm a big Deontay Johnson fan, and in points per game, he was the wide receiver 8 this year.
Okay.
Well above expectation.
I'm going to say, Scott, I don't know how often you often tune into Steeler games, but like that's where I struggle a little bit sometimes, is because, like, Dave, you probably see it often. Like, he doesn't make a lot of these routine catches that I'm used to Juju or Antonio Brown seeing. So, like, it's definitely my bias. So you're looking at it. I think Scott's looking at it through the right lens, is what I'm saying.
I'm definitely not as doom and gloom about it as you are.
Dude, big moments, man. This guy doesn't step up. Sorry, Scott. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good. I totally get it. I'm the same way with DK Metcalf. I'm lower on him than a lot of people because I watch Seahawks games, and I just for the potential that's there for DK, he should be a lot higher than, where did he finish? Wide receiver 20 or something?
Yeah, 20.
You know what I mean? So I totally get the home team lens. I totally get it. And I know I didn't make a point to sit down and watch a ton of Steelers games this year. But I'm looking at it strictly from, I mean, he was top 4 or 5 in targets. I mean, it's gonna depend a lot on what happens at QB. If Mason Rudolph, in fact, becomes the QB next year, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with anybody.
But watch Steeler games at this point.
I mean, I'll still take Najee. I'll still take Najee because he gets 100% of the opportunities. But I'm
have Najee play quarterback.
Oh. Okay. All right. I've heard enough. Right. Scott, give us your loser headline. We got to get.
I think I have to make a switch of my loser headline at the last minute because it was about the Cowboys, and we just talked about the Cowboys a bunch. So it was going to be, I don't want to be a Cowboy, baby. But we already talked about the Cowboys. So I'm going to just come up with a random everybody Jalen Hurts REM song. Okay, I want to preface this with, I am a Jalen Hurts fan. I think he should be the starter next year.
Agreed.
I get the whole, like, oh, it was the defense and the O-line. It wasn't him winning games. It's like, okay, you could say that about Mac Jones. You could say that about Jimmy Garoppolo. You could say that about a ton of quarterbacks. I think for fantasy purposes, he's a great quarterback. And I get the discrepancy between fantasy and real-life NFL. The reason I'm calling him a loser is because it's going to be tough for him to come back with that now added to his portfolio, that performance and that loss in the playoffs. I think it's going to be tougher for him to maintain and keep the starting job next year. I think he should. Kyle's on it.
Yeah, maybe.
I think he should personally. They switched. They had one of the biggest 180s I've ever seen from pass to run this year. I mean, they ended up like 500 plus rushing attempts on the year. It was insane.
Yeah. Led the league, if I'm right.
Yeah. So I'm rooting for the guy. That's not a reason for him to start because I'm rooting for him. That's not a reason for you to draft him on your fantasy team because I'm rooting for him to succeed. But I am rooting for him. And I feel like even though it was kind of expected against the Bucs, you know what I mean? It's like, it's still, once it happens, there's a reaction. I always compare it to Trevor Lawrence. It's like everybody knew for months he was going to be the number one quarterback. As soon as he actually got drafted, everybody's like, oh my God, Trevor Lawrence. It's like, no, we all knew this. It's just that now it actually happened. So I'm just concerned about what it does for Jalen Hurts.
I think he'll be back. I
hope so.
They need to get him another wide receiver outside of Devonta Smith. Quez Watkins can only do so much. I'm sorry, he's limited. And Jalen Reagor does not belong. Don't even say
Jalen Reagor's name.
He doesn't belong on a football field. He's only playing strictly due to draft capital at this point. But I think they need to make some improvements there. The offensive line is getting old. I know they were good this season. And I don't know. The running backs are good, but they're only so good. I wouldn't mind if they did add another dimension to that. I think they could use a bruiser, like not Jordan Howard, but like a legitimate bruiser. Like there's a Ramondre Stevenson type running back coming out of this draft. I don't know. They have a lot of like Gainwell's got potential. Sanders has potential, but they're only going to get so far.
Sanders, it's all about his health. When he's healthy, he's 5 yards a carry. He's good. It's just he can't stay healthy.
Guys, let's move forward here to our rankings debrief. Before the season, Scott, Dave, and myself, we set out on a epic quest to project all 32 teams, rank them. It was quite the effort. Days, months, sleepless nights went into this. A lot, but I was very happy with our overall product for our draft guide, our in-between media draft guide. If you didn't get a chance to check out the draft guide, I am sorry. Shame on you. Next year we'll be back. We're gonna have some new stuff in it this next season. So no worries, no harm, no foul. But we're gonna break down the rankings, what we took away from it here. This is presented by our rankings debrief. Is presented by Underdog Fantasy. Go over to underdogfantasy.com. Get on the app. You can use the promo code IBT. You're going to get 100% match deposit up to $100. They have Best Ball. Best Ball is back, baby. They got playoff Best Ball. A lot of weekly drafts. They have the pick 'em parlays every week that we do over on the DFS tailgate as well. So presented by Underdog. Also presented by Monkey Knife Fight. Guys, Monkey Knife Fight, the awesome thing about that, if you're tired of football, if you're tired of, it hasn't been your year winning money, whatever it may be, burnout from the season, go over to Monkey Knife Fight, get on the NASCAR, get on the college basketball, get on the PGA, man. They got the multipliers over there, man. They got multipliers that, you can literally put in $5 and win $500. And if you use the promo code IBT, you're going to get 100% instant deposit match up to $100, baby. Good economics at Monkey Knife Fight. Good economics over at Underdog Fantasy as well. Use those promo codes. Get in there. Sign up. This is the time, man. There's no season-long commitments to any of this. It's just having fun, scratching that itch a little bit. So use those promo codes, guys. Thanks to our partners over there at Monkey Knife Fight Underdog. Let's get into our rankings debrief. All right, guys. So want to talk about rankings. As I said, we launched these in August as part of our draft guide. We hope people were over there helping them with their draft. I think we did overall pretty decent. Dave, what was your biggest takeaway from doing these rankings and projections for the first time?
It's hard, man. I mean, geez, it's a lot of work. You go and I spent a lot of time trying to figure this out, and I had resources such as all of last year's stats and all of the previous year's stats. And I looked at other people who do projections. I looked at what their expectations are. And I wanted to at least fall within the frame of what seemed to make sense, on these things. But I feel like I overprojected everybody by a few points, at least a few points, some more than a few. I probably would like to play fantasy football in the world with my projections because there were just more fantasy points in general. So that would have been fun. But I'm trying to be as realistic as possible here.
Yeah, it was. I remember when we first started talking about doing rankings for the draft guide, I was about to submit just my rankings. And then you were like, no, this has to be based on like projections. I was like, oh, damn it. I was just going to submit a list of people and be like, there they are. So, but we used Kyle Yates' template. I believe we used that for the projections, which was really, I think, a really good tool to start with. It was difficult. I did a lot of research into team tendencies the last few years just to try and get some sort of baseline of what to expect. Because a lot of it is based on not just like, okay, I think this player's going to do this and this one's going to do this. It's like, I think the team's going to do this, and then you got to fit all the pieces together.
Exactly. You had some great data. You had some great data, Scott. That was a great starting point looking at what the percentage of runs versus passes were and overall plays as well. That was a great starting point.
Yeah, so I mean, I needed some sort of baseline to start with because I've never, like Dave, I've never done projections before. I remember I used to look at like weekly projections and I'm like, how is a guy going to score 0.76 touchdowns this week? Now I understand where those numbers come from, But yeah, so I built in a few formulas to our spreadsheet just like to see if what I was putting in there was coming anywhere close to what the team has been doing, But one thing it really taught me is, before I had done any projections, I would often like have a big take on somebody like this guy's going to eat this week or this guy's going to smash and all this kind of stuff. And like I might have some irrational thought in my mind of what that meant. But when you're actually sitting down and you have to like put all the beans in the bowl until it's full, then you can't just give this guy 5 touchdowns and this guy 3 touchdowns and this guy 7 touchdowns. It's like you've got to have it fit. One mistake I made, I think, is I did it and then I looked at it where everybody fell out and then I tweaked it to kind of get it where I thought it should be. Yeah. And I don't know if that's really the way you're supposed to do it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like I did it and I was like, oh wait, that guy's too high. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to take some yards off him to make it fit. So I have I'm very excited to dig into it this offseason for next year.
Agreed.
Right.
Agreed.
We're going to do it better, even better than before. Yeah.
Guys, where did you feel like you did personally well in theory? Not specific players talking about hits or misses, because I feel like overall we did very well at the quarterback position. We hit Josh Allen as our QB1 overall. I was within. I didn't look at your guys' point totals, but I was within 1 point of Josh Allen's total points for the year. So I was happy about that. Dave, I believe you were within a point of Justin Herbert, if I'm right of that.
Within 1 point of Justin Herbert's total production.
Yeah, and we had Justin Herbert, I think, as our QB 5 or 6 overall, which was much higher than the industry standard. I had Mahomes as my QB 4. I think maybe you guys were around QB 2 or 3 on that as well. But we were a little lower on him than consensus. And I think, Josh Allen, they proved why. I personally hit on 10 of the top 12 QBs. Only ones I had in there that didn't finish were Lamar and Russell Wilson, which I think are both surprises to us. Lamar's more due to injury. Russell Wilson, combination of poor play and injury. Dave, any other thoughts of where you think we as a whole theoretically did well or personally?
Well, I mean, I think you're right that as a group that, we did pretty well with the quarterbacks and, personally that was my strength. I had a lot of trouble with every other position. I think is more the accurate way to say it, but I did have Josh Allen as my number 1. I know we had him as the consensus 1, but I think I was the only one of us to have him as my individual number 1. and I was within 1 point of Justin Herbert. I was within 1 point of Taysom Hill too, interestingly enough.
That's crazy.
Which,
That's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot.
My lottery ticket.
I just thought that was wild. I'm like,
That's
I can't believe I
crazy.
was that close. But I was way off. I have a couple that I was way off on. I was way off on Daniel Jones. I actually had him finishing as a QB1 this year, as the overall QB11. So I had him way too high.
I do remember you really high on Danny. Yeah.
I thought that Kenny Golladay was going to make things change, and that it never materialized. And I was a little too high on T-Law. I knew his situation was going to be tough, but I still had him as a solid QB2 play, and he was really more near the back end of QB2s. So.
Yeah. Scott, overall here in theory, man, anything you specifically think that we or you did well on?
I got, as far as points per game, I got Tyler Lockett exactly right at wide receiver 17.
Okay, nice.
Other than that, not really. No, that's kind of the thing I think I wrote in the show sheet, especially with wide receivers. I think I follow the consensus a little too much on things.
Agreed.
It's easy to say that in hindsight. It's easy to say, what the hell did I have Allen Robinson so high for? But everybody had Allen Robinson high. We didn't know this was going to happen. But I was way too low on Jamar Chase. I'm embarrassed to even say where I had him. So I'm just.
Where did you have him?
You got it. Yeah.
I think it was like 40s or 50s, wasn't it? It was like 40s or 50s.
This is redraft, folks, obviously. I have him. Oh, boy. Wide receiver 41.
Wow.
Behind such stud players as Kenny Golladay, Chase Claypool.
I don't feel as bad anymore.
I did have Debo ahead of him, but I had Debo way too low as well. I bought way too much into the and I'm the first to admit it. I bought way too much into he hasn't played for a year. The stripes aren't on the ball. He's dropping it. I bought in. I'm not going to do it again. Mistake. Lesson learned.
27, and I had him at 27. Dave had him at 28. So still too low on him. Still too low on him. But I agree with you here, though, Scott. The top end wide receivers, though, were tricky. It was a lot of guys, Hunter Renfrow, Debo, that we weren't expecting to finish up, so high there. Justin Jefferson, he's our guy. We hit that one as always.
I almost put Calvin Ridley 1 over Adams. So that's a different reason why.
As a 4 overall, I think.
I overprojected Adams. I overprojected Diggs by a lot. A-Rob, obviously, pretty badly. DK Metcalf, I was overprojected on.
Well, and the two I talked about in the Mondays that I faded, and I learned a lesson here too, were Mike Evans and Adam Thielen. And I specifically faded them because I just figured they weren't going to score as many touchdowns.
Yeah.
Which is, with Mike Evans, I don't necessarily regret that thought because his TD percentage jumped quite a bit from 2019 to 2020. But it shouldn't be the only reason I faded him to the back end of wide receiver 2 land. So, but this is all a learning. I'm going to learn a lot from this. I was with Debo though. I was only as far as total points, I was only 139 points off. With Debo. So.
How about it? Yeah. Okay. Let's just go around the room quickly. Best breakout hit. So these aren't sleepers, but these were guys who you were higher personally on than the industry standards. Scott, starting with you, who is one of your breakout hits?
My one person player to kind of hang my hat on this year was Mark Andrews. I had him at tight end 4 in our rankings, so that's not necessarily like a huge swing. Yeah. But I had a bold take of him as a tight end 3, and with this group of tight ends that we had entering this season, making it into that group of 3 is a pretty big deal, right?
George Kittle, Darren Waller,
and Waller and Kelsey.
Kyle Pitts, and then
Hawkins. So I had him ahead of Kyle Pitts and all the rest of the guys. I had him at 4. I just was really high on him. I thought, he was another guy I dug into, and I just didn't think like his big season a few years ago seems a little bit anomalous, seems like a spike, but it really wasn't. It really was a sustainable type of thing. I had to play a little bit of faith that the Ravens would pass more than per usual, which they did. I didn't envision him being the tight end 1. He went crazy.
Yeah, that was crazy.
But he was a guy I was propping up that worked out.
Dave, breakout hit for you this year in your rankings?
I'd have to say this is where I would file Austin Eckler, because apparently he wasn't a household name coming into this season, and well, he sure is now.
Where did you have him?
I had him as RB3.
Yeah, see that's nice.
Yeah.
I know that that was
that's
bold.
nice.
I think I had him in RB6. I think maybe Scott, were you RB7 on him?
7.
Okay, yeah. So overall, we did a good job on Eckler. Dave, you were definitely the highest, I remember, on Eckler.
I mean, I had him ahead of like Chubb and Barkley.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So I was like,
yeah.
I mean, you Dave obviously had him ahead of.
I had him.
But I struggled with that. I was like, I looked at it and I was like, oh, I have Eckler ahead of Chubb. Should I do that? But I'm glad I did because
he was a stud.
Yeah, he was. I have a kind of a weird little stat about Eckler. If you take each running back's weekly rank where they finished, and you average those, so you average that number of their weekly rank, Eckler is number 1, ahead of Jonathan Taylor.
Did you do that?
Yes.
You do that?
Oh yeah.
Can I see that data at some point?
Oh yeah, no, I've got a little thing cooking with a bunch of running back data.
That's awesome. That is outstanding, Scott. Great work there as always.
Are we supposed to say data? Because I said data. Sorry.
Data. No data. No data.
I call it data.
Data.
You guys call it data?
We'll just call it data.
Data. Yeah, follow Scott on Twitter at MunderDiff for that data, whatever you want to call it. For my breakout hits, guys, Brandon Cooks. I had him projected wide receiver 20. He finishes wide receiver 20. Very solid wide receiver 2, almost exactly what I thought he would be this season. Davis Mills obviously played a big part of that as well. So I was happy to hit on him. And the other one I'll honestly hang my hat on, guys. I wasn't as high on him as I should have been, but I was definitely higher than almost everyone in the industry, I feel like, on Leonard Fournette.
Yeah.
Our draft guy that had an RB19. And I just saw it, man. I saw it, but it was like last postseason. That's what got me. Is I was like, holy hell, like this guy is going.
Until he got hurt.
He got you.
Until he got hurt, he honestly, until he got hurt, was in the glimpse of a running for the RB1 overall. Like he had it in his range of outcomes with how many targets and receptions he was getting in that offense.
Yeah.
He was a huge miss for me. A great call for you, Seth. I randomly drafted him in some random middle round in a league, and it propelled my season.
Did you think of me when you did it?
Well, I'm always thinking of you, so it's hard to judge if I did specifically there or not. I think of you whenever I'm
anywhere.
I think of Seth whenever I'm rooting on whenever I'm rooting on Cole Kmet. That's when I think of Seth.
Oh fuck no! God damn.
Hey, that's me. That's my guy.
Yeah, no, get out of here.
Seth has an irrational hate of Cole Kmet.
No, I will say I did go up to Jen at we were at the Fantasy Football Expo in draft night out, and I went up to her and I saw it was like the 8th or 9th round, and Leonard Fournette was still on the board. I was like, Jen, you got like 1 RB, and I'm pretty sure it probably worked out. I think it was James Conner and maybe someone else ended up working out for it. But I was like, you should go after Leonard Fournette right here. And she went back in and she went and did it. I was like, Jen.
It's a great call.
She ended up with Conner and Fournette.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. We'll have to verify that. But
that's why I could never beat Jen ever this year.
Yeah.
Never beat Jen.
What about your best sleeper hits, guys? Because I felt like I had a book of sleepers coming into this year, and honestly, almost none of them panned out. My late rounds were pretty atrocious outside of a couple people. Any sleepers that you hit on, Scott?
So I don't necessarily have the receipts or any tweets or articles that I wrote about this particular player, but I feel like I was at least saying the name and propping up the possibility with Elijah Mitchell as the draft was coming along.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily have a very concrete outlook on what he would do. I owe it all to Ray GQ. I listened to him a lot over the offseason. He was talking him up as hey, keep your eye on this guy in San Francisco. So, but that's what we do in this industry. We listen to people smarter than us, and then we pass it along, and we win 1 out of 15 championships. That's how it works. So Elijah Mitchell was one.
Good idea.
Yeah. I mean, for the draft guide, I completely whiffed on my sleeper. It was Terrace Marshall Jr. Big swing and a miss there.
He was a guy you could cut after like.
I mean, I don't necessarily. It's one of those. It's one of those where, like, I mean, you have takes that you have. It's easy to say I got it wrong. I mean, the results are right there. I got it wrong. But certain takes you got wrong where it's like, I should have done this. I should have done that. I should have learned this, or I can learn this from that mistake. Other takes you get wrong. It's just like, I still stand by my take. It just didn't pan out.
Yeah.
So at the time with Terrace Marshall, like, I don't think it was a bad take at the time as a sleeper in that offense with Curtis Samuel gone. I didn't envision the Panthers offense being as stagnant as it was all year. I mean, CMC missing most of the season is going to do that. And then the Darnold Cam show, but you know, is what it is.
Any sleepers for you, Dave?
Yeah, I didn't have a lot of great success with sleepers, but I'm kind of going more for my accuracy of where I thought guys would be. And when I mentioned this next guy, and that's Elijah Moore from the Jets, I ranked him as wide receiver 48. He finished as wide receiver 44.
Okay.
You know, he was kind of exactly who I thought he would be, you know, a useful wide receiver 4 that you were going to be able to plug into your lineups during bye weeks and things like that, you know, and get you through. Somebody you should have taken a shot at one of your late round picks in your redraft league. And I did in a few of mine. So that, you know, it panned out well. I mean, that was a dependable fantasy player that I had, but he didn't exactly, you know, have the world's greatest season. But he was who I thought he was. In the immortal words of Dennis Green, he is who I thought he is. That's a paraphrase, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
No, I like that one, Dave. I'll probably have to go here with. I was hot on Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think all of us kind of liked him at different points in our we were decently high with him in our ranks. I had him as a top 40 wide receiver. I was just the issue with that is I was projecting him out to be a steady, consistent guy who is catching, 5 for 40 each week. But it didn't pan out that way. He was pretty irrelevant the first half of the season to the point where I drafted him in a lot of leagues. And by week 5, he wasn't on my roster anymore because he shouldn't have been. But he ended up being a league winner for a lot of people. So it's one of those, the process was right, but that's something I will remember for last year's. Some of these players, I'm just going to project them to have a super slow start or a super hot start. And it's not consistent.
I think the other thing that was tough about this being our first year of projections of doing the process was it was also the first year we jumped to one extra game. I found that pretty difficult. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just I can't necessarily do I just apply a percentage to a 16-game season? So
also coming after COVID, the COVID season with no fans too. Last year the numbers were boosted a little bit as well. The other one I'll say that I wasn't super high on him in our ranks, but I was higher than everyone else, and I was low on his counterpart was Dalton Schultz. I had Blake Jarwin as 24 in our rankings, tight end 24. Scott, you had him at 15. Dave had him at 11. So you guys kind of thought Blake Jarwin, for good reason, might have been the tight end 1 here in Dallas.
The money trail.
Yeah. I came back. I thought Dalton Schultz would be the guy. I took him in Scott Fishbowl and a lot of other leagues late, and he paid off. He was a big time sneaky guy. That was probably my best sleeper. Other than you guys know how hot I was on Austin Hooper, and that just did not come through. So I'm glad Schultz could kind of come through.
Oh my God, I buried Dalton Schultz in the rankings.
Where did you have him, Scott?
Big mistake.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, these are tight ends. I had him in the 40s.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be. I was a little bit biased because Blake Jarwin personally wished our good friend Linda Lindellians personally tweeted out a happy birthday to her. So I was like, all right, I'm a Blake Jarwin fan. And that probably swayed my decision a little bit. But I thought he was going to be the tight end. That's obviously based on my tight end 14 rank for Jarwin and 45 for Schultz. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
Guys, let's talk about
Schultz in a similar range.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, it's like whoever you chose to be the tight end 1 in Dallas, whether you were right or wrong, the tight end 2,
the other one.
It makes sense that they're way down that list,
Yeah. Guys, let's talk about best fades here. Who are the players that you faded the most against consensus that paid off?
For me, it was somebody I feel like I faded him heavily. I took him absolutely nowhere, but I still think I had him too high, is Mike Davis. I was never, ever, ever on any kind of Mike Davis train. I understood the logic behind it going to Atlanta and what he had done filling in for CMC. But I don't know. I'd seen him as a Seahawk, one of the 149 teams he's played for. And I just, I'm not going to sit here and say, I just assumed Cordell Patterson would take over as the lead running back for the team. I didn't think that. Mm-hmm. But I wanted nothing to do with Mike Davis. So really? I feel like that was a pretty good fade.
Dave?
Yeah, I don't know. This is a tough category for me because I didn't fade the right guys in a lot of places. But I guess it's Lamar Jackson is probably the biggest one for me because I was nowhere near where consensus was on Lamar Jackson. I didn't have him down at quarterback 14, but I wasn't as high as him on. As high as most others were.
I had him on QB. I think QB3. I had Lamar at QB3, and I think Scott, you were maybe QB4 or 5 on him.
Yeah,
we were.
Yeah, I think I was QB7. If I'm not.
Injuries definitely played a role in that too. But I mean, overall, he wouldn't have been a top 4 no matter what, probably. So that's a good call.
No, I picked a lot of guys to finish high that didn't do well. So I did the opposit of what you're talking about right now.
The anti-fade
guys that. Yeah, the anti-fade, right?
Yeah,
I faded Cooper Kupp. Does that sound smart?
I faded Cooper Kupp in the sense that I had Woods ahead of him. I still had him in the top 15, but I don't know. Yeah, Lamar. I had Lamar at 5. I had Lamar at 5, and I picked him up. I drafted him everywhere. I really did. That was one thing that kind of hamstrung me this year.
Yeah. Well, that's why. That's kind of why I brought that up about Lamar is, because he did have a great start to the season, and obviously, when things were going early, if you had Lamar, you were
40 burger earlier,
feeling good, yeah. But then and injuries were obviously a huge factor, but just disappeared down the stretch, and so if you were a team that was relying on Lamar, you didn't win. And you're
he was my Scott Fischel quarterback.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there, Dave. I would say my best fades, I had Saquon Barkley at RB23 in the draft guide.
Yeah, that's
wild.
I remember seeing that thinking you're crazy.
I remember doing that, and I was like, I remember literally trying to go back and trying to bump him up, almost doing what you were saying earlier, Scott, looking at it and be like, I need to bump this guy up.
Artificially bringing him up.
Yeah. We after we launched those ones, we went and updated them. And I tried to bump him up, and I think I actually dropped him back down more than I had him. So, yeah, I was off Saquon, guys. I just didn't believe in the Giants' offensive line or the Giants as a whole. And I'm a Penn State guy, too. So, that burns me a little bit to say that. But at the end of the day, I was somehow right on Saquon Barkley. So, listen to me, I guess, for all your fading Penn State running back.
So him and Miles Sanders, huh?
We'll see. We'll see what happens next year. And I'll also say in the draft guide, I had Laviska Shenault at wide receiver 52. You guys were somewhere, I think, either in the 30s or 20s. I can pull that up what we were exactly.
Please don't do that.
Laviska Shenault, I was 52. Dave 33. Scott 32. So not terrible. You guys had him as a wide receiver 3. I had him as a wide receiver 5.
Where did Nate have him? I know Nate had him highest.
Nate didn't rank.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, then we can just make it up. Nate had him as our wide receiver 12.
Yeah, Nate had him as a wide receiver 1 overall, I think. But no, I just didn't buy into the. Eventually, I raised him when we did our updates. I raised him once Travis Etienne went down a little bit. But I just wasn't buying into it, man. I think Laviska's a good player. I just don't think Trevor Lawrence in year 1 had what it took to unlock him. And at the end of the day, it's just Urban Meyer, boys. It's Urban Meyer.
Really poorly coached.
It's really tough to like.
DJ Chark's a stud too, yo. DJ Chark's a stud.
I like DJ Chark. I got him stashed. I got him on a dynasty team.
I hope he gets out of Jacksonville soon, bro.
It's really difficult with the Jaguars this year. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, well, but this and that about Shenault. Like, he looks like a bust. But it's hard to judge a lot in Jacksonville because I remember one thing Nate definitely got right that he was screaming from the rooftops from the get-go was Urban Meyer is.
Yeah, he did.
I didn't buy it. I was like, okay, he's a bad coach.
Yep.
But what can
yep.
I mean? It's the NFL,
okay,
but it's like I didn't.
Yeah.
He like brought the ship down with him.
Yeah.
And Nate was saying that from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So I want to see what happens with some of these Jaguars players once they have a competent coach next year. But man, it was ugly.
Assuming they do.
Assuming they do. It's not necessarily the hottest ticket in town.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, Shenault, total miss.
Okay, guys, let's round it out here. Worst overvalues or undervalues that you think you had? I mean, I can just start reading mine off if you want, but I'll
read my rankings to you.
Yeah.
Just look at my rankings.
Dave, any terrible overvalues or undervalues other than the obvious? Like, everyone overvalued Allen Robinson in this. We know that. Yeah. Everyone undervalued probably Jamar Chase
and Cooper Kupp,
a couple of those.
Debo.
Are there any like?
Yeah, I'm gonna own up to one of my biggest fails.
Okay.
I had Joe Mixon as an RB2. I had him as the 19th overall running back.
Yep.
I look foolish because of that call. Yeah, for sure. So that was bad. I missed big time. I was basically low on almost all the wide receiver rookies that mattered. We talked about, like, I had Chase at 28, had Waddle at 41 or something like that.
Super low on Waddle, yeah.
So low on those guys, it felt like I liked those guys, but then when my projections came out, I just turned out being lower on them than I thought. I guess that's basically what we're,
I mean, I'd say couple of my biggest overhyped, overvalued. One we've talked about was Laviska Shenault. I helped my brother with one of his drafts, and he was telling me who was on the board. I was like, "Oh, Laviska's still there? Get him!"
Oh, jeez. Visca season, baby. Visca season.
Probably my biggest whiff, I would say, as far as just expecting a lot and getting ultimately nothing at all was Jonnu Smith. I just liked a tweet of Dave's not too long ago where he said, remember Jonnu Smith?
Dave just texted me that before the show.
I did. I texted that to
I was in threads with For Whom the Bell Tolls with our good friend Jeff, who's big on Jonnu Smith. We were just talking up Jonnu Smith. I thought he could be a top 7, top 6 tight end. And again, it's like part of it I'm not going to fall on my sword too deep for. I mean, I was following the money. I didn't expect the Patriots to pay Jonnu Smith the amount of money they paid for him to
26 receptions,
ever touch the ball. But I should have known that that's kind of been his MO with Tennessee as well, is you had kept expecting more touches and catches and targets because he's so athletic and so dynamic. But after a while, when that's not happening, it's not happening for a reason.
Kyle, in the back end, can you look up what Jonnu Smith's stat line was this season? Because I will say, at least Scott, at least you weren't Nate. Nate's all-in pick was Jonnu Smith. I think specifically because Jeff got inside his head.
Oopsie daisies.
I will say I came around to Jonnu later in the season, but I was also I think I was higher on Hunter Henry than everyone. I liked Hunter Henry this year. But I will fall on my sword for a couple here. Adam Troutman, RIP. I had him tight end 8. So
that, sorry. I mean, he got hurt. Right when he got hurt, he was coming off. He was coming off a really good game when he hurt himself. So
Austin Hooper, I fell on that one.
By the way, Jonnu Smith had 39.4 total fantasy points.
39?
He played in 16 games, 28 catches for 294 yards and a touchdown.
Oh my God. I was about to, wow. Okay. Yeah, he's got to be one of the biggest busts.
That's not a good stat line.
Yeah.
I projected Adam Troutman's touchdown in the hard bargain.
Nice. That's right. You did. I remember that. That's right.
Yeah, that was one of my good calls.
That's awesome. I love it when that happens.
Robbie Anderson. I was very high on Robbie Anderson. I think a lot of us were. Chase Claypool. He was someone I was expecting to break out, and Chase Claypool absolutely took a huge step down, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I would say for me too, I talked about Elijah Mitchell, but I didn't, outside of Dynasty, I didn't do a lot of drafting of Elijah Mitchell. I got the 49ers wrong all over the place.
Yeah.
I was Ayuk over Debo. I was Trey Sermon and Raheem Mostert. I was Trey Sermon as the guy.
Yeah.
I'd have to look. Where did I have him ranked? He was another one where my brother was like, who should I take? I was like, oh, Sermon's still there?
Your brother's never going to call you like
I know. I know.
That's why he doesn't follow me on Twitter still. I follow him.
Well, then he told me who one of his league mates took. And it was Adam Thielen, and I was like all against Adam Thielen because of the touchdowns. And I was like, oh, have fun with Adam Thielen this season. Just not a good showing.
Scott, one that you and I were both really high on in the draft guide was Chase Edmonds. I had him projected from was 10 total touchdowns. Like the thought process was there with Chase Edmonds. I was expecting like an Austin Eckler 2019 season, and James Conner was not Melvin Gordon 2019. He was James Conner, the best I've ever seen him in his career.
Yeah, that was insane.
James Conner, the touchdown machine.
Yeah, it was. I'll also follow my sword, man. I was hyping up on other podcasts all season. People be like, "Oh, who's your sleeper this year?" Nelson Aguilar. Oh man, that one effing sucks. Nelson Aguilar led the league in yards per reception last year. Did not produce anything this season. And then Cole Beasley, I had him on a ton of rosters. And the worst thing about him is like you had him all season. Didn't do jack shit. Just
Yeah, I mean he had a couple good floor games PPR wise, but not anything to
the floor wasn't there. Like the year before, he had was scoring 9 or 10 points a game where you could roll him out. This year it was either he'd have a 20-point game or he'd have like a 2-point game. So Cole Beasley was very, very disappointing.
Yeah. You mentioned James Conner. I should throw him in as another guy I faded that I got wrong. And I think I paid
RB36.
Yeah. I paid the price because I swear throughout the playoffs with my fantasy teams that were in the playoffs, every week, one of my teams got knocked out by Conner. Every single week. Like clockwork.
I had no Conner anywhere.
Oh, I had no Conner.
I tried trading for him.
Incoming trade for him and just hit accept because it was interesting at the time. And then he started scoring all those touchdowns, and I was just like, oh my God, this has turned out really great.
Do you remember the trade, Dave?
Oh my gosh. I can look it up.
When was it?
You guys keep talking. I'll find that information
right
here.
We are going to get ready to roll out of here. Final thoughts for me on this draft guide, on these rankings that we did earlier in the season is I absolutely enjoyed it. It challenged me as a fantasy analyst. It challenged me as a content provider, and I was happy to do it. I think it's safe to say we're gonna take it on again this year.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, this year I think we're gonna get started a lot earlier. We can start kind of putting the pieces together of it here after free agency. The draft can kind of really be where we start locking in on it. But I'm absolutely happy to do it.
I started this as soon as we finished last spring or late summer, but I'm gonna revamp our document.
Yep.
Where there's going to be a lot more information. Like as you start putting things in, it's going to kick out a lot of other peripheral information to kind of just see where you're at. So that's in the works.
Perfect.
Nice. Hey, well, I found that trade for you, so let me get it to you before we go. Now, keep in mind, this was in a redraft league, and it was on November 4th, right after Derek Gore had that game where he looked like somebody.
Oh, no.
And I had just picked him up before that.
Oh, no.
So I traded away Derek Gore and Justin Jefferson to receive Robert Woods and James Conner.
That would have been a really good trade if
it would have been a really good trade if Robert Woods didn't go down almost immediately after that.
J-Jet, bro. I can never trade J-Jet. That's one of my boys.
Well, I was otherwise pretty good at wide receivers, so I felt like and I needed
I think probably as the crow flies, if you compared the fantasy points from those two options, I think you probably came out on top with what Connor did.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it worked out favorable, but that team
I was really waiting for you.
Issues.
I was really waiting for you to say Derek Gore and some other scrub.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you just totally cashed in on this random Derek Gore game.
I wish. But this was the trade he offered me too.
No.
Well, it was not something that I put out there, but I was like, I'm going to take that.
I mean, Chase Edmonds didn't get hurt till week 10. So like Connor didn't really start to take off, where you knew it was for real until later in the season. And Edmonds wasn't Eckler. He wasn't bad. I had him ranked in the 20s, and I think if he plays a full season, he finishes in the 20s.
I was a little higher. I think I was like RB16 or something. I had him up, but Well,
and at the same time, the running joke before Jacoby Myers not scoring touchdowns was Chase Edmonds.
Yeah.
So there was a little bit of negative touchdown regression that was happening too.
Right.
Overall, though, guys, an absolute blast doing these rankings. Thanks to anyone who bought the draft guide, anyone who's didn't only buy the draft guide, but has tuned in all season long. We got a couple more postseason shows coming at your way before we take a little bit of a quick off-season break, and we're right back at it for season 4 of the In Between Fantasy Football Podcast. 4, baby.
That's 4. Crazy. Yes.
Yeah. This is episode 37. We'll be back in just a week from now with episode 38. Dave, thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, man. It was fun to pod with you, Dave.
Hey, I had a great time, you guys. Thanks for having me join.
Absolutely. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Dave Fantasy. You can find Scott at MunderDiflintFF. I'm at between_SethFF. The show, the site, everything we have going on over there in Between Media. We're at IBT_media. Thanks to everyone tuning in. Enjoy the divisional round. Hopefully some more interesting games for you. And we'll be back next week. Until then, guys, keep it in between.
The In Between Fantasy Football Podcast.
So one thing that really sets us apart here is we're not afraid to talk about other things that maybe aren't super fantasy related.
Do what you can to